It was a year ago today that we saw those horrific images on our television screen and learned about the children and adults who died at Sandy Hook. And I'm going to ask you to go back there and visit those children. The modern world is asking you to witness the suffering of others every time you turn on a television or open up your computer screen. And there's a tendency for us to look away because we bring a problem-solving mode of mind, and it is natural to want to feel good and not feel bad. But some of the things that we see aren't things that we can avoid feeling bad about. And if we have to not feel bad when we see the suffering of others, the only place that we have to go is into an unhealthy place in which apparently what we need to do to survive this modern world is to not feel at all. We know from our own research in acceptance and commitment therapy and the model that underlies it is that not enjoying or caring about being with others happens if we are unable to take the perspective of others, if we can't go behind the eyes of others, if we can't feel a bit of what it might feel like to be another person. And when we find something difficult there, if we simply run away, then we cannot be with others either. That combination of taking the perspective of others, feeling what they feel, and not running away when it's hard is needed for a kind of flexible connectedness to others. And in the modern world, with the exposure to suffering that we have, it's something that we have to bring into our own minds and hearts in order to be able to be with ourselves and with others in a way that is compassionate, connected, and liberating. And so I'm going to ask you to go back to Sandy Hook. Noah Ponzer loved to read. He loved anything mechanical. And look at these sweet eyes and take a moment to go behind them and put him in that classroom on that day and get just an inkling of what it might have been like for him to first hear and see what was about to happen. Grace McDonald loved to go to the beach. Her favorite color was what she's wearing here. It was pink. And go behind those eyes and imagine what she might have felt as the children began to scream and the gun began to fire. Jack Pinto loved flag football and baseball and wrestling and anything athletic. And put yourself behind his eyes and imagine what he might have seen as bullets tore through the bodies of children. Emily Parker was always smiling. She was an exceptional artist. She was learning Portuguese. And imagine what she might have felt as she saw the destruction around her, as that gun ripped through a classroom of 6-year-olds. Adam Aznaugh died on that day. Shy, bright as a whip, fascinated by computers. He'd had a hard time in preschool, but he was excited by first grade. And then he witnessed what happened in that classroom as well. And this set of eyes we've seen, but we've probably not taken the time to connect with. We've judged her. She's hardly listed as a victim at all, but she was the first to die, seeing this boy that she loved raise a gun to her and shoot her dead. And yes, we say, why did she have that gun cabinet there? Why did she teach him about guns, and didn't she know? But this is a mother who loved her boy, who had moved from one place to the other to make it possible for him to go to different schools, who had sought out help from the educators and the mental health specialists, and who had withdrawn her son from high school rather than see one more day of torment that he suffered. This is a mother who loved her son, and to some degree, who had been failed by the system itself. And then can we even go behind the eyes of this strange person? This person we call murderer, this person we call perpetrator. And yes, we judge the act, but remember how hard it must have been to be in him. This was a boy with Asperger's who was obsessive and compulsive, who was extremely anxious, who couldn't stand to be touched, who had been ridiculed and made fun of from the very earliest school years, and found comfort only in the lonely connection of video games. And if you can't relate to those eyes, how about these younger eyes of Adam Lanza? And see if you don't see a human being there who suffered. Yes, he inflicted suffering on others. I get that. But this boy suffered. And it's worth taking the time to try to see the world through his eyes. And if you still can't do it, how about through these eyes? I was telling you the truth when I said he died that day. A shy, bright boy, fascinated by computers and excited by the first grade. Because that face is not the face of Adam Asnow, that's the face of Adam Lanza when he was a young elementary school child, experiencing rejection and ridicule inside his inability and his anxiety, inside the difficulties that made him unable to connect with other children. And so even though while we judge him, let's see if we can find humanity there, even in this young face of a boy who became a killer. We have to find a place in which we can be aware and compassionate and psychologically open, or we're simply not going to have the modern minds that this modern world of constant media exposure to the suffering of others is presenting us with. And so I ask, before you flip the channel or turn the page on the newspaper, to take just a moment, to take perspective, to open up and to not run away. when we remember the suffering of those who died a year ago. Their suffering is worth our attention.